Okay, hello, Dave. Can you hear me? Oh, I'll assume okay. Looks like I'm doing a broadcast to one person today. Um, but we're also going to connect to the YouTube live stream to see if maybe we can pick up a couple extras over there as well. Uh, I know I normally try to start right on time at 9:30, but I just want to see if we can gather just a couple extras here before we get started. Um, Suppose I could have sent out a second announcement. So today's topic was supposed to be kind of like an act for new users. Anybody that wants to get more familiar with how to use the program the right way. I was going to do this in a few parts series and have kind of an overview of the right way that we can go through using ACT from start to finish, creating contacts and duplicating. But if you think that you'd rather have something a bit more tailored, then feel free to type it in the chat and let me see. That being said, we can get going. Okay, so the first thing that we'll get started with is just introducing a bit of the ACT database. So here on my desktop I have installed the ACT 2017 demo, and today we are going to be working out of the newest version of ACT, ACT Premium version 19.2. This version was just released at the end of May, and so there's a couple of new features that make it more stable and easier to use, and we'll get started looking through it. So this here is the demo database, and when you first log into ACT, you may see either the welcome screen or you'll see the contacts list. Here under the contacts list, we are looking at the contacts list view, and there's also detail view for each contact, which we'll go into in more detail. But before we do, there's other entities within ACT that you'll see down the left-hand sidebar. We've got contacts, groups, companies, and calendar. These are kind of your main ones, and they're almost in order of priority of how often they're used here. There's also history list, opportunities, e-marketing, and then some others that we'll get to later. I intend to have a video or a stream dedicated to each one of these topics in the future. So looking here at our ACT 2017 demo database, we are looking at a contact list, and you can view all contacts in your database. I use this very handy View All Contacts shortcut button right here in the left sidebar that you can see. This will show all contacts in the database, and currently we have 25. It shows me based on which one I'm selected, how many contacts there are, and where I'm currently at. And if I double click on one of these, then I can see the detail views about the contact. Looking at the detail view of the contact, you can see that my button over here switched to detail view from list view. You can see all the information in these different fields throughout the database. Contact, title, department. It's always a good idea whenever you create a new contact to fill out all of these fields as much as possible. Along the bottom, we have a second panel with other tabs on it, including activities. These will show scheduled calendar events and activities with the contact. Opportunities are open sales opportunities that are currently scheduled with this record. The history is a history of all your logs and record of interactions with the contact. Let me see if I can find someone in this demo database that actually has some history in there. This demo database is provided by ACT, and doesn't look like there's actually a whole lot in it. Over time, as you use ACT, the history will fill up, including things like Outlook emails, phone calls, meetings that were held, and to-dos that were done and completed. Notes are for quick notes about a contact, and I normally like to customize this layout and put the notes a little further up. A note, I see it as a wildcard for basically any information that doesn't fit into one of these fields up here. So in ACT, there's generally a place for everything and everything in its place. If you have a field that you use often, you can make a custom field for it if there's something that's not listed up here that you'd like to have. You can certainly make all sorts of custom fields for numbers, text, drop-down lists, calculated fields, you name it. But if there is something that you really just want to make a note, maybe we want to make a note on somebody's record that they just started a family, or they hate the Miami Dolphins or something. I'm not sure. You just want to make a quick note about something when you visit. You know, the office is on second floor. Use side door for when you go to visit them. That can be an example of something that you might want to put into a note. To make a new note, there is the New Note button up here. It's a very large, prominent New Note button with the plus mark next to it. Similarly, there's the shortcut down here. Same button. All roads lead to Rome. The New Note panel comes up. It fills out this information for you that it's going to put this note on Jesus's record. It adds a date and a time associated with the note, although generally by the nature of what notes are, the date and time isn't so important. You can optionally add an attachment. You can attach a file to the note if you'd like. And then in the details section, you can copy and paste and type as much text as you'd like. All notes and histories in ACT, and activities as well, can actually also be private. There is this private checkbox down here, and if you do that, then that means that this lock symbol will appear next to the note, and you, as the currently logged in ACT user, are the only person that will be able to view that note. Other users that are logged into the database right now would not see this. Generally, I don't like for people to make things private. Private in ACT really is private, and I'm kind of the mindset that if you have something in there that you don't want anyone else at your company to see, well then why is it in the database? But there are certainly uses. Sometimes people do put personal contacts and appointments and things like that in there for their own personal management, and they want to make them private as they go. The contact record has a Documents tab, and underneath each contact you can attach documents. So if I go to Add, Attach a File, I always recommend that you add a file in under the Documents tab. Some of these are similar. If you do a shortcut to File, then you can find any file on your computer. I'll pick this quick document here. But if you do a shortcut to File, it saves a lot of space, but all it does is just links to where the file is saved on your machine. And if you move or change that original file location, then it will disappear. Then it will break. The link will not update, so if in the future somebody wants to try to open this, then they will be unable to, or if your computer's off. For that reason, adding a shortcut to a file is normally not a good idea, but it does save space in your database size. I advise that people always add the file itself, because if you add a file, what it will actually do, and this is actually out of the database files folder, just find a picture of a file here. What it will do is make a duplicate copy of the file out of the original location on your computer. It makes a copy of that and puts it into the ACT database files folder on the server, and now it's in a central location that everybody can get at. And if you change or move or alter the original file location at any point in the future, then the one that was copied onto the server still remains the same and nothing is broken. So if you're going to attach anything under the Documents tab, make sure to add the file directly. And go ahead and remove these out with the Remove button. Groups and companies will show groups that this contact is a member of. I intend to do a full stream on groups in the future. Secondary contacts is a lesser used feature of ACT. A secondary contact is if you want to add in a contact for somebody in the database that's related to that person, but you don't want to create an entirely new record. Well, what does that mean? It could be like this person's attorney, or maybe their spouse, or maybe their child. If you're a financial planner, this can be really useful. Sometimes people that have a contact record is always supposed to just be one person per record. It's never a good idea to do Mr. Joe and Mrs. Jane Smith, for example, within one contact record. You should have a record for just one person, and then you can add the other ones under secondary contacts if you so choose. Or you can create the other contacts as their own individual record as well, as a separate new contact. But if I wanted to add in Billy Clark's attorney here, if he was somebody that I had to do business with occasionally, or I just wanted a record of it, and I didn't want to create an entirely separate contact for Billy Clark's attorney, then I can add a new secondary contact. And the secondary contact gives you some options here for filling out company, contact, title, phone, and some other contact information for this person, address, and more info. So I can see, the company could be law office, Joe Law, and title could be his attorney. And the secondary contacts, like I said, it's a little bit of a lesser used feature, but some people use this to keep a record of contacts that go underneath the primary one, that they don't want a whole separate log of history and notes for. By the way, similar to this left sidebar where I said it's almost a hierarchy of the most commonly used things on top going down, it's pretty similar with this default act layout that we have, moving left to right. We move into some lesser used items as we go along the screen here. The very most important ones are history and notes, activities, opportunities, and documents. Relationships is also less used because generally your sales team knows the relationship between contacts and organizes it appropriately. If you wanted to relate one contact to another, if you had Billy Clark in here as one person, and then you had Sarah Whiting in the database as somebody else, and you wanted to relate that these two are actually married, then you can use the Relate Contact button to form relationships between two records in your database. If I press the Relate Contact button here, it tells me I can relate Billy Clark as a contact to, and then it will show me in this drop-down all other contacts in my database. I can start typing by last name to find somebody in here. If I type Whiting, here comes Sarah. I can define the relationship. They have some predefined drop-downs. And you can also edit the list values and type in your own, but I can say that these two are actually spouses. Married June 2017, congrats. Again, the relationships tab might not be something you use, but I'm trying to maybe reveal some things that people haven't seen before and they never look at it and wonder, what is that about? So you can create relationships between your contacts there. Social updates. ACT in, I believe it was 2015, the 2013 version of ACT, added an integration for LinkedIn and Facebook. All that this really is a web browser built right into the ACT database with pre-made bookmarks to LinkedIn and Facebook. If I try to go on the social updates to the LinkedIn page, what this does is opens LinkedIn, give it another try. It says, okay, let's refresh the page. It opens LinkedIn, it's logged in as me, and then I've got, it tries to find, based on the name of the contact record I'm currently on, it pulls up search results for who it thinks it might be. It's looking, well, here's a Billy Clark from Phoenix, Arizona, and it found somebody in here, platform developer at SwiftPage. That's kind of funny that they actually have some real company names in here. Normally these demo database people do not exist at all, but maybe this is actually a developer at SwiftPage slipped himself into the demo database. A similar thing will happen with Facebook. It will just log into Facebook as you and then try searching for the contact record. That's the social updates tab. I think, in my personal opinion, you're probably better off just going in your web browser and trying to find them separately. The Web Info tab is a nice little trick that a lot of people never bother to check out. The Web Info tab, you can add in custom links to the internet, just like the Social Updates tab. It has a web browser built right in here, and it will open up web pages based on the links that you've defined here in the side. It will load them for you right within ACT. So for example, I can custom define some of these. Some of the predefined ones, like weather, will actually show me the weather at this contact's location. If I click on weather, it opens up the weather channel, and it should be loading up the weather in Phoenix, Arizona right now, in the zip code 85050. Although it's running a little bit slowly, probably because I'm running a web stream right now, and also this browser built in is, it's kind of like a smaller version of Internet Explorer. but I can see the weather in Phoenix along with everything else on the Weather Channel page. If I go to the contacts website, my web browser would change to load up whatever information I have in the website field here. In this instance I don't have anything, but maybe if I move to somebody that does, back to Jesus. This is a fictional website, so I'm not surprised that it doesn't exist. But as I move across my contacts going to the right here, the browser will actually update and keep switching over to their other websites. Of course, none of them are going to come up. You can also see Google Maps. It will show you a maps location of where this person is, as well as driving directions, which will route it from your contact records address over to theirs. Moving on from the Web Info tab. Well, actually, before I move on, I will say that some of these might seem gimmicky at first glance, but if you go to this Edit Links button, you can add in other links on here. So some companies might have like a web database that you use to look up contacts, maybe especially financial planning offices I often see have this. They might have some type of internet-based app where you can look up a contact and have a separate database for other information about a record, about a contact. You can add in a custom link to whatever website or shortcut you'd like and add it to this list. And you can use custom mail merge fields. You know, you can see, for example, the Google Maps link has some of the contact fields built in. If you look closely at this URL, these will actually pull in data from the contact record. So you can add in some custom links here, and maybe that can get the wheels turning about some ideas that you could have in regards to the Web Info tab. Moving on, like I said, you can customize ACT layouts. You can add custom fields up here as much as you'd like. These ones on the top screen, they're more visible right at a glance, so they're kind of your more important fields that you'd use the most often. But you can have custom tabs down here, and they've made one called Personal Info, where they just add in some extra fields, including things like home address, personal contact info. This could be for an alternate email address or an alternate phone number. Information like their birthday or their spouse, if you choose that you want to have it. And similarly, the User Fields tab, similar to the Personal Info tab, it's just got nothing but 10 blank user fields. These are just here in case to get you started with custom fields if you want to put really whatever you want in there. If you want to change the fields in your ACT database, you can go to Tools and Define Fields and delete these out of here or rename them or change them. But you can enter in more information into these fields if you run out of space to put something and you want to get started. The Contact Access tab can actually make an entire contact record public or private. So before, when I showed you that note that I made, and I made the note private, and I said that only contacts who were logged into the database would be able to view this contact, you can do the whole thing at an entire record level. You can mark a contact as private, and now you, as the logged in user, are the only person at the company that can see it. Even other administrators in ACT cannot see it. Private really is private in ACT. It's the way that SQL has the contacts generated, and it won't come up for anyone else. Public means everybody can see the contact, of course, and limited access is if you just want to pick and choose individual contacts from your users and teams, if you wanted to go on a case-by-case basis of who has access to this. Some companies that I've seen with really competitive sales territories might do this. They'll have one database of all their contacts, and the administrative and office staff and management team might want to have access to everything, but they might want their individual sales members to only have access to their contacts within their territory and not see anything else. Certainly depends entirely on your company environment, and if that's the case, then defining users and teams is a good way to go about doing that, and you can change under the Contact Access tab who has access to view this record. I could do a session on Teams, and maybe I'd ought to. I'm going to jot that one down. A team is a good way to easily define these kind of settings. If you wanted to pick and choose specific members to have access to a record, and you don't want to have to do it every single time, every time you make a record, teams are basically a function that will almost automate that for you or make it a lot easier. You can even set contact access preferences instead of going into the detail view for a contact and going on this tab. You can do it directly from the list view by right-clicking on a contact and saying Edit Contact Access. And you can change the lists here. And you can even select many contacts at once to do them in bulk. I should point out, I selected many contacts at once with the Shift key in that instance. Whenever you're working with the list view, if you select a record, hold down Shift, and then select something else, it will highlight everything in between. I'll come back to some list view operations in a minute. There's actually some really handy things you can do using these functions along the top. Marketing results is not used anymore. There was a first version of SwiftPage, was called SwiftPage eMarketing. It was an email marketing platform that Sage, at the time they owned Act, they partnered with a company called SwiftPage to add in some e-marketing, and they added in this old platform called SwiftPage Connect. This was in 2010 they added this on. And 3 or 4 years later, SwiftPage actually grew enough in size that they bought Act from Sage, and now it is SwiftPage Act. The new email marketing is all in this e-marketing tab. This marketing results tab is now defunct and really should be removed, but for legacy purposes and because there's still a large amount of the audience that is using it, even though it's no longer supported, the marketing results tab still exists. It can be hidden out of your layout if you don't want to see it. I would tell you to ignore it. And timeline, I say it almost with a bit of a laugh. I guess there are several people out there that use it. I find it to be a gimmick in my personal opinion. It is just a visual view of all the history in your database. So if I look at this history here, you know, Randy, it shows me some history of interactions that happened, including what I said earlier, like you might see calls and emails. I like looking through this history list just organized by date, and the list view makes the most sense to me, but the timeline is just a separate layout for this that will show dates along the top and kind of have a timeline of what has happened with this contact in a visual view. Some people really like that, so by all means you can check out the Act timeline. Whew, okay. I would pause and ask for any questions, but we're coming up on time, and so I'm going to be closing out soon enough. When we create a new contact, you can create a new contact record by pressing the new with the bust of a person up here on top, and you can go ahead and fill out all contact information on this blank record. If I go ahead and fill out a record for myself, you can see that as you tab through the fields, it's a very good idea to fill out as much information as you can and save it up. As you go through a contact record and edit, there is a save icon up here, a floppy disk, an old relic of the past. Act does have an autosave feature, so if you fill out a lot of information and then move away to a different screen, in most cases, and almost every case, but I say almost, it will autosave for you. Nonetheless, I make it a habit. I kind of compulsively press the save icon whenever I fill out a significant amount of information. I save it up just to confirm all the changes and reaffirm it. When you're adding many contacts in a row, it can be irritating to have to press new contact and fill out all blank information several times over. So to make it easier, if you're working with a contact from the same company, so for example, if I am working with Wilson Matua from Kilimanjaro Safaris, and I meet somebody else from the same company, and I want to add in their information quickly. This is a bad example. I want somebody with an address here. If I want to add information from the same company, I can use contacts and then duplicate contact. If I duplicate a contact, I get the option to duplicate all fields. This will make a 100% duplicate with everything in there. But if you do just primary fields, the default option, then it gives you a new blank record, but it fills out stuff that's probably likely the same between the two contacts. So it kept the same company name, phone number, and address. So I can go ahead and add in the second person that I met at this company. And maybe if you went to a meeting and you met 9 people from the same company, you only really need to fill out the information completely for the first one, and then you can repeatedly duplicate the contact to add in all the other ones to make it easy on yourself. This is going to conclude part 1 of our stream today. Please tune in next week. I hope to see more people on the stream, and I'll do a bit more better job of promoting it in the future. We're going to have everything going through with, we'll be going on to scheduling activities with a contact, clearing activities off of your calendar, and how ACT works in conjunction with the calendar that's built right in. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everybody has a great day. Goodbye.